Sir, my mom works hard. Her boss won't pay her.
The little black girl, 8 years old, eyes already brimming with tears, tugged the sleeve of the man in the wool coat. The billionaire's assistant scoffed.
Honey, take your filthy little hands off Mr. Anderson. Beggars don't belong in a place like this.
A barista yanked the child back hard.
Get the cleaning lady's brat off our customers. We don't serve trash.
Another raised his phone, recording. Nobody stood up. But none of them imagined that 15 minutes later, every single one of them would be begging her for forgiveness. She had started counting in September. Not the way her teacher counted, with neat tens and hundreds in chalk dust. Willa Brown counted the way a child counts when something is missing and no one else is looking. Small marks, kept private, made faithfully every night. It began on a Wednesday. She had come out of her bedroom for water and found her mother sitting at the kitchen table with the phone face down, staring at the wall. Wanda Brown was 34 years old, the crew lead for a company called Brightline Facility Services, and she did not cry the way grown-ups cry on television. She got quiet, the kind of quiet that meant the rent was late and there was no one left to ask. Willa, 8 years old, did not know what to do with that kind of quiet. So she went back to her room and took out a red spiral notebook her aunt had given her 2 birthdays ago. And on the inside of the front cover, she wrote, in her best handwriting, Mama's Nights. Underneath, she drew 2 small examples for herself. A star with 5 careful points, a moon like a fingernail. Star equals before sunrise. Moon equals after. That had been 3 months ago. By the second week, she had added Miss Patty Davis, who cleaned the building next door and had a baby too small to count for herself. By the third, Mr. Elliot Sanders, the retired bus driver from the gold-doored building 2 blocks over, who waved at Willa every morning on his walk. By the fourth, Auntie Mae Wilson, her mother's oldest friend, who worked the same crew. Willa heard their names through her mother's phone calls. She did not need to ask why she was counting them. The kids, she told herself, were too little. Somebody had to. Now it was late November. The kind of November that smelled like wet wool and exhaust, where the rain came in sideways and the sidewalks gave back salt to the bottom of your shoes. Willa walked everywhere with her hood up and her notebook in the front pocket of her backpack, where she could feel the chewed corner of it through the canvas. She chewed the corner when she was nervous. She had been nervous lately, more often than not. There was a coffee shop 2 blocks from her after-school program, a narrow place with a bell over the door that rang in 2 notes when someone came in. One bright, one tired. Willa had heard both notes 100 times. Today, walking in behind her mother, she only heard the tired one. The wealthiest skyline in the country rose 10 blocks south of where they stood. Willa had seen it from the bus, glass towers stacked like teeth against the sky. Her mother cleaned 3 of those towers. Wanda's keycard had a Brightline logo on it, and the logo was scuffed where her thumb rubbed it every night. Tonight, Wanda's shoulders were folding. That was Willa's first rule of grown-ups, and she could read it in her sleep. They lied with their voices, but not their shoulders. Tonight, the lie was, I'm fine. The truth was, the polyester rustle of a uniform jacket pulled on too quickly, the way her mother held the phone like it was a small animal that might bite. Willa had also noticed, in the last few weeks, a man. He came on Tuesdays. Same drink, a black coffee, no sugar. Same coat, a long charcoal wool with the hem always wet because he sat too long. Same ring on the same finger, which he twisted without seeming to know he was doing it. He was perhaps 50, perhaps a little more. His name, though Willa did not know it yet, was Wesley Anderson. He had once been the man who filled rooms. 2 winters ago, his wife, Eleanor, had died of a slow illness, and ever since he had filled coffee shops instead. quieter rooms that asked less of him. He never read the book in his hand. He stared mostly at the steam coming off the cup. Willa had been watching him for a month. She did not exactly know why. She thought, perhaps, it was his shoulders. They were tired in a way her mothers were tired, but quieter. Today, his hand was in his coat pocket the way a person's hand is when they are searching for something they have already lost. She did not know that her mother was about to lose something too. She did not know that the man across the room, Wesley Anderson, founder of Halcyon Holdings, sometimes photographed billionaire who had not attended a board meeting in 2 years, would, in 11 days, send a single email at 4 in the morning that would end the career of a man named Gregory Holloway. She knew only this, that her mother's shoulders were folding, that the bell above the door had rung in only one note, and that the man at the corner table was looking down at his coffee like it had wronged him. She made a decision the way only an 8-year-old can, without weighing anything, and with absolute conviction. She unzipped her backpack. She took out the red notebook. She held it in both hands so the chewed corner faced her belly, and she crossed the room. Outside, the rain kept falling. She did not walk straight to him. That would have been too obvious, even for an 8-year-old. And Willa Brown had been observing grown-ups long enough to know that the trick to being heard was to seem accidental. So she crossed the room in a slow, drifting line, pretending to look at the pastry case, pretending to consider a chocolate croissant the size of her face. She stumbled just a little near his table. Her sneaker caught the leg of an empty chair. She did not fall. She did not need to fall, but she swayed enough that the man's hand came out of his pocket and steadied her elbow without his face quite catching up. His hand was big and cold from holding the coffee. He smelled like wet wool and a cologne so old she could only describe it as grown-up. "Sorry," he said. His voice was rougher than she had expected, like a coat that had been folded for too long. "It's okay," Willa said. "I do that sometimes." He let her elbow go. She stayed. He looked at her, and for the first time in a month, she saw his eyes up close. They were brown, with small lines at the corners that did not come from laughing. "You look sad like my mom," she said, but quieter. He blinked. The faintest pull at the side of his mouth that might have, in another life, been a laugh. "Quieter how?" "Mom's sad has noise. Yours doesn't." He had no answer. The coffee shop hummed around them. Behind Willa, near the window, her mother was still on the phone, back turned, voice too low for Willa to make out the words. Willa estimated, the way she estimated everything, that she had 90 seconds. "Can I sit?" she asked. He nodded slowly, as if the gesture surprised him. She climbed into the chair across from him. Her feet did not touch the floor. She noticed him noticing, and tucked her sneakers a little farther under the chair so the swing would be less obvious. She put the red notebook on the table. "What's that?" he asked. "My mom's nights." She turned it so it faced him, opened it to the first page. The marker had bled a little where she had pressed too hard. "Stars are when she came home before sunrise. Moons are when she didn't." He looked at it. He did not, she noticed, look at her. He looked at the page the way a man looks at something he has read his whole life and never noticed before. He had read balance sheets that hid more than this little book ever could. This little book he could read in 2 seconds. "Why are there other people in here?" he asked. She had not expected that question. Most adults stopped at the first page. "Miss Patty cleans the building next door," she said. "Mr. Elliot has the gold doors. Auntie May works with my mom." She tapped the page. "They have kids, too. The kids are too little to count, so I count for them." He was quiet for a long time. He turned a page. Another. 3 months of stars and moons, neat as pencil shavings, with names in a child's careful block letters. He stopped on a recent page. His finger paused on a name written in red marker. Eleanor M. Willa did not know why he had stopped. She did not know that his wife had been named Eleanor. She did not know that the man across from her had not heard the name said out loud in his own house in 2 years, and that seeing it now in a child's notebook, even attached to a stranger, had pulled something loose in his chest he had been holding in place with both hands. Eleanor M., she said helpfully. That's Eleanor Mason. She's new. She works the building with the marble lobby. He nodded. He did not trust his voice yet. The barista called something. The doorbell rang in 2 notes, bright and tired, both this time. Willa felt warmth coming back into the room. The man cleared his throat. "Would you like a hot chocolate?" he asked. Willa considered this carefully. She was not supposed to take things from strangers. But this was not a stranger. She had been watching him for a month. She nodded. He raised one finger, and a barista was at the table almost before he had lowered it. "A hot chocolate, please. Extra marshmallows, and one of those." He pointed to a sugar cookie shaped like a leaf in the case. When it came, the cocoa was the color of wet earth, and the marshmallows had already begun to melt into a small white island. The cookie was warm. Willa broke it carefully in half. The edge crumbled a little onto the marble tabletop and slid the bigger piece across to him. "I don't think he started. "You have to take it," she said. "Otherwise it doesn't count." He took the cookie. He held it like he did not remember how to hold a cookie. He had not been given anything by anyone, freely, in 2 years. He took a small bite. "Why me?" he asked. The question was so quiet, she almost missed it. She thought about it. She had not thought about it before. She thought about it now. "Because your shoulders are tired," she said, "but your eyes still look up." He set the cookie down on its napkin. It was a long pause. The kind of pause that, on a recording, you would leave in. The hum of the coffee machine. The bell at the door. Somewhere outside, a taxi horn. Behind them, Willa's mother turned around. Willa felt it before she saw it. The air shifting, the fast heel click of a tired woman crossing a tile floor. Wanda's hand was on her shoulder a second later, light but firm. "I am so sorry, sir," Wanda said. "She knows better." "Willa, what did I tell you about?" "It's all right," the man said. His voice had come back a little. "She wasn't bothering me." Wanda's eyes moved, took in the watch, the wool, the way the man did not stand up, but did not look down either. Took in, also, the cocoa, the broken cookie, the open notebook on the table. "Willa," she said quietly, "we're leaving." Willa picked up the notebook. She paused. She put it back down. She slid it across the table, not to its center, but all the way to him, until it was on his side under his hand. "In case you can read it," she said. "We come on Tuesdays." Wanda's grip tightened on her shoulder. Wanda did not say anything yet. There were words she would not say in front of a stranger. They left. The bell above the door rang in 2 notes. Both of them, this time, were tired. The man sat alone at his corner table for a long time. He did not drink the rest of the coffee. He read the notebook from the first page to the last. When he reached the page with Eleanor M., he ran his thumb across the name once, carefully, the way you would touch something fragile. A star sticker had come loose from one of the pages and fallen onto the marble. He picked it up, and he put it in his pocket. Outside, the November rain had thinned to a kind of misting that didn't fall so much as hang. Willa pulled her hood up. Her mother walked fast, not quite holding her hand, not quite letting go. "Don't bother strangers," Wanda said. "He's not a stranger. Willa had to hop a little to keep up. "I've been watching him for a month." "Willa?" Wanda stopped, looked down. "You watch too many people." "Someone has to." Wanda did not have an answer to that. She started walking again. They had gotten half a block when the phone in her pocket buzzed. She pulled it out, looked at the screen. Her thumb hovered. "Mama, who is it?" "It's the office, baby. Hold on." She tapped answer and put the phone to her ear. The speaker was on, and Wanda did not realize for a beat. The voice came through too loud, smooth and flat, like a man who has decided what he is going to say before he has dialed. "Wanda, glad I caught you. Mr. Holloway, listen, about those hours from last week. I went back through the schedule. You weren't on those nights. Maybe you dreamed it." A pause. Wanda was very still. Willa had stopped walking. "I worked them," Wanda said. "The schedule says you didn't. And Wanda, honestly, let's just call it. We're going a different direction with the lead role. You don't need to come tonight." The silence after the click was a kind of silence Willa would remember for the rest of her life. The kind that has weight to it. The kind that makes a sidewalk feel like it tips. Her mother did not move for a long count. Willa counted 10 in her head before Wanda's hand came down to her shoulder, and the hand was so cold Willa almost flinched. She had seen this stillness before, Willa thought. In deer near the highway. In birds when shadows fell wrong. She reached up and took her mother's hand. Wanda did not squeeze back at first. Then, after another long second, she did. That was when the bell above the coffee shop rang again, 2 blocks behind them, and a man came running out without a coat. "Wait," Wesley Anderson called. He had the notebook in his hand. He was out of breath in a way that surprised him more than it surprised anyone else. He had not run for anything in 2 years. "Please, wait." Wanda turned. The fluorescent light from the bodega across the street caught one side of her face. She looked, in that moment, like a woman who had just been told her bones did not belong to her. Wesley stopped a few steps short, did not crowd. "I read it," he said. "All of it. I can help." Wanda's face did something Willa had only seen once before, when a woman at the church had pressed a $20 bill into her hand at Christmas. It was not anger. It was the older, quieter cousin of anger. "I clean offices," Wanda said. Her voice did not rise. "I don't take handouts." "Ma'am, I'm not—" "Whatever you read in there," Wanda said, "is between my daughter and me. Thank you for the cocoa." Wesley nodded. He looked for half a second like he might argue. He did not. He stepped back. He did not push. Willa watched her mother. She watched the man. She watched the notebook in his hand. And then she did something she had not planned, but felt as inevitable as the rain. She let go of her mother's hand. She walked the 4 steps back to Wesley Anderson. She reached up. She took the notebook from him. She turned it around, faced it toward herself, and then very carefully, both hands, she pushed it back into his. "In case you can read it," she said again. "Willa." Her mother's voice was sharp enough to cut paper. "Mama," Willa said, without turning around. "He reads." A taxi splashed past. Somewhere uptown, a siren. Wesley Anderson was holding a child's red spiral notebook with both hands like it was a thing that might break. Wanda walked up. She did not take the notebook back. She looked at Wesley for a long second, at the watch, the wool, the way he was not apologizing. Then she took her daughter's hand. "Come on, baby." They walked. They did not look back. Wesley stood under the awning of the bodega for another full minute. Then he opened the notebook to a random page. The audit pattern was clear now that he was looking for it. 11 weeks of moons across 4 names, at least. Across, he counted, 14 buildings. His finger stopped again on Eleanor M. Office, he said quietly to no one. Not home. A taxi pulled up. He got in. He told the driver to take him to his office, not his apartment. The notebook stayed on his lap. He did not read it again on the ride. He just kept his hand on it, the way you keep a hand on something you are not yet allowed to lose. That night, 3 things arrived at once. The first was an email. It came to Wanda's phone at 9:14 in the evening. The subject line read, Brightline Facility Services, Voluntary Resignation Confirmation. Attached was a form with her name on the signature line, in a handwriting that was almost hers, but not. The second was a 30-day eviction notice, slid under the apartment door by a man who did not knock. Willa heard the paper move. She came out of her room in socks and stood looking at the envelope on the linoleum for a long time before she picked it up. The envelope was cold from the hallway. The third was a notification from the unemployment office, denying the claim Wanda had not yet filed, citing the resignation she had not signed. Wanda sat at the kitchen table with all 3 things in front of her and did not move. She did not cry. She did something worse. She got quiet in the way her grandmother used to get quiet, the kind of quiet that meant a long road was beginning. Willa sat across from her with the red notebook open. She drew a moon for the night that should have been a working night. She drew another. She drew a third. Then she put the marker down and went to bed without dinner. Her mother did not notice. 2 miles south, in an apartment that took up an entire floor of a building Wesley Anderson had bought 12 years ago and rarely entered anymore, Wesley sat at his own kitchen counter. The kitchen had not been his kitchen. It had been Eleanor's. Her cookbook was still open on the marble. To the same page it had been open to the morning she had gone to the hospital for what the doctor had said would be a short stay. Grilled cheese, hand-corrected in pencil. Butter on the outside, mayo on the inside. You'll thank me. He had not thanked her. He had not closed the book. There was a fine layer of dust along the spine he could not bring himself to wipe. He called his general counsel at midnight. He kept his voice low. He asked for 2 things: a tenant safety review of Brightline's keycard logs across all Halcyon leased properties, and the name of the auditor at Brightline's parent company. Then, against the counsel's quiet advice, he called Gregory Holloway directly. Holloway picked up on the second ring. He sounded surprised. He sounded amused. Wesley, it's late. I'd like to talk about Wanda Brown. A pause, then almost gentle. Wesley, come on. You don't want to embarrass an old friend over a cleaning lady. Wesley did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He had learned 20 years ago that the men he most needed to fear were the ones who never raised their voices. What's the name of your auditor at Parent? He asked. Holloway laughed. What's this about? Just curious? Lewis Morrison. Why? Thank you, Greg. He hung up. In Holloway's apartment uptown, Greg Holloway smiled and went back to his bourbon. He thought he had won. He thought, in the way men like him often think, that a billionaire calling at midnight about a cleaning lady was a billionaire who would write a check and forget about it by Friday. He was correct about half of one of those things. At 11:50 the next night, a delivery driver buzzed Wanda Brown's apartment. He had 3 pizzas and no name on the order. Willa got to the door first. She opened it on the chain. Who's this from? She asked. The driver shrugged. Already paid. Big tip, too. Willa took the boxes carefully. She walked them to the kitchen counter and set them down. Her mother stared at them for a long moment. Then, without saying anything, Wanda got up and got 2 plates and a stack of napkins. They ate. They did not speak much. Wanda tried to call the delivery service the next morning to pay it back. The service told her it was prepaid, no name attached, no card on file. She suspected immediately who it had been from. She did not say so. She did not say anything. Willa drew that night a single star in the notebook for the day. Beside it, in smaller letters, she drew a question mark. Wanda saw the question mark. She did not ask. She also did not put the notebook away. She did not tell Willa to stop counting. She let the notebook stay open on the kitchen table while she washed the dishes. When she went to bed, the rain had turned, briefly, into something heavier, a real November rain, drumming on the window in a way that sounded almost like a person trying to get in. She lay awake, listening, until she didn't. 3 days later, at recess, Willa was sitting on the low wall by the chain-link fence with Hannah, the only girl in 3rd grade who had ever offered to share her colored pencils. Hannah was telling a story about her cat. Willa was listening, but she was also watching the street, the way she always watched the street. A man was at the fence. He was perhaps in his middle 50s. He wore a tan coat that had seen too many seasons. His face was tired in a way that made Willa think reflexively. Grown-ups lie with their shoulders, not their voices. His shoulders were not lying. They were hunched in the soft, unhappy way of a person who did not want to be where he was. "Honey," he said, "are you Willa?" She did not answer. He smiled. It was not a bad smile. That was the worst part of it. "Your mom asked me to come pick something up, a little notebook. She said you might have it on you." Willa felt the blood in her face slow down. She thought very clearly, in that moment, about the rules her mother had taught her. About how a man can wear a coat and a smile and still be the wrong man. About how sometimes the trick was not to be brave. The trick was to be small and slow, and to give yourself time. "I have to ask my teacher," Willa said. She did not look at his face. She slid off the wall. She walked, not too fast, across the playground to the door where Mrs. Whitman, the recess monitor, was standing with a cup of tea. By the time Mrs. Whitman came back to the fence, the man was gone. Mrs. Whitman did not see him. Mrs. Whitman, for the rest of the afternoon, told Willa it had probably been a confused dad looking for the wrong child. Willa knew otherwise. His name, though she did not know it, was Curtis Whitaker. He had been a bondsman, then a process server, and now a private investigator who took the kind of jobs other investigators turned down. He had a daughter, grown now, who did not call. He did not feel good about being at a 3rd grade fence asking a child for a notebook. He did not feel bad enough to refuse the job either. Mr. Elliot Sanders was waiting at the corner when Willa came out of school at 3:15. He had not been waiting at the corner before. Mr. Elliot Sanders, retired bus driver, gold-doored building, name in Willa's notebook with a moon next to it half the time, had heard from Auntie May that there was a man asking around. Mr. Elliot was 71 years old and used a cane for his bad knee. He held the cane harder when he saw the tan coat across the street. "Walk with me, Miss Willa," he said. She walked with him. She held his free hand. The cane tapped on the sidewalk in a steady, careful rhythm. The tan coat did not follow. That night, the second blow came. Wanda's phone lit up with a text from a neighbor, then another, then another. A small online tabloid had run an item, barely a paragraph, about a woman named Wanda Brown, age 34, who had been arrested 12 years ago in connection with a bounced check during a custody dispute. The misdemeanor had long since been dismissed. The sentence had never been served. The article did not mention either of those things. The article mentioned instead that Ms. Brown was currently under investigation for potential workplace misconduct at Brightline Facility Services. Wanda read the text, then the article, then the building chat, where someone had pasted the link with a single eye-narrowed emoji and the word "Yikes." She closed her phone. "Pack a bag, baby," she said to Willa. "We're going to Auntie May's for a few nights." Willa packed quickly, the way a child packs when she has been waiting for a sentence she did not know was coming. The notebook went in first. Sneakers, a clean shirt, the little velvet pouch with the 2 birthday dollars from her grandmother. In the hallway by the elevator, the woman from 4B who always smiled at Willa would not meet her eyes. In Auntie May's small apartment, 3 rooms, garlic on the stove, laundry steaming on a folding rack, Willa sat on the love seat and opened the notebook on her lap. Her mother was in the kitchen with Auntie May, voices low. "Auntie May," Willa called. "Yes, baby." "Mama, is the man we gave the book to also bad?" A pause from the kitchen. Then her mother's voice, careful. "I don't know, baby." Willa looked down at her notebook, at the row of stars and moons, at the careful block letters of the names she had been counting for 3 months. "I do," she said quietly. She did not draw a moon that night. She drew for the first time a small heart in the corner of the day. Then she closed the notebook and put both hands on top of it and held them there until she fell asleep. While Willa slept, 3 things happened in 3 different parts of the city, none of which she was awake for. The first was that Wesley Anderson's general counsel, a quiet woman in her 60s named Margaret Wilson, returned to her office after dinner and pulled the keycard logs for every Brightline leased Halcyon property going back 4 months. She matched, line by line, the swipe-in and swipe-out times against the entries Wesley had photographed from a child's red notebook the night before. She matched 11 full weeks, across all 14 buildings. Cleaners had been clocking in. The shifts had been scrubbed off the payroll later. The differential had a name on it. The name was Gregory Holloway. Margaret called Wesley at 1:08 in the morning. "It's there," she said. "Email me everything." The second thing that happened was that Wesley called a woman named Lillian Carver. Lillian was an investigator at the New York Regional Office of the U.S. Department of Labor. She and Wesley had known each other for 15 years. Her brother had once worked at Halcyon. She did not owe Wesley a favor. She owed honesty a favor. He told her what he had. He did not ask her to do anything yet. He asked her if she would attend a meeting at Brightline the next day. He told her there was a witness. "Adult?" she asked. "8, he said. A long pause on her end. "Bring her," Lillian said. "But Wesley, you are not running this room. I am." "Understood." The third thing was that Wesley called Auntie May Wilson's apartment from a number Auntie May did not recognize. Auntie May answered on the second ring, the way a woman answers a phone after midnight. "Is this Wanda Brown's number?" Wesley asked. "Who's asking?" He told her. He told her also that he was not asking for Wanda's permission for anything. He was asking for permission to ask. Auntie May handed the phone to Wanda. Wesley spoke quietly. He told Wanda that he had a meeting set for the next morning at Brightline's headquarters, that a federal investigator from the Department of Labor would be there on her own authority, that he had keycard logs, that the keycard logs matched a notebook he had not been able to stop reading for 3 days. "Why do you need my daughter?" Wanda said. "Because the notebook in an adult's hand is hearsay. In her hand, it's a record. She's 8. I know." Wanda was quiet for a long count. "The choice," Wesley said, "is yours and hers, not mine. If you say no, I still send what I have. The notebook stays out of it. It will be a slower kind of justice, but it will come. In the kitchen of Auntie May's apartment, Willa was no longer asleep. She had been listening from the hallway in her sock feet, her ear inches from the doorframe, the way she had been listening to grown-ups her entire small life. She walked into the kitchen. She did not knock on anything. "Mama," she said. Wanda turned. "I want to." Wanda closed her eyes. The kitchen clock ticked. Auntie May, at the stove, did not pretend not to be listening. When Wanda opened her eyes, they were wet, but her mouth was steady. "Okay, baby," she said. "Okay." The next morning was clear and cold, the kind of December morning that put a thin skin of white on every parked car. Willa wore her best dress, a cotton one with small sunflowers on a navy field. The sleeves slightly too short because she had grown 2 inches since September. She wore her clean sneakers. She wore her hair in 2 careful braids her mother had done at the kitchen table while neither of them said anything. The notebook went in her arms, not her backpack. She wanted both hands on it. The car Wesley had sent took them to the Brightline building. Brightline kept the top 3 floors of a 60-story tower in Midtown, glass on every wall, a view that made the river look like a flat blue ribbon. The elevator hummed. Willa watched the floor numbers go up. Wanda held her hand all the way to the conference room door. Then, at the threshold, she let go. "I'm right here," Wanda whispered. "I'll stand right here." The conference room was bright. The table was a single piece of glass. Gregory Holloway sat at the far end with 3 lawyers and a tray of pastries. He was wearing a gray suit and a lavender tie. He had the look of a man who had been told the morning would be inconvenient, but not difficult. Wesley Anderson sat at the near end. Beside him sat a quiet woman in a navy coat who had not yet introduced herself. Lillian Carver had a legal pad and a pen and a face that gave nothing away. Holloway saw Wesley first. He did not see Willa, who was standing behind Wesley. "Wesley," Holloway said, smiling. "What's your case here exactly? A little girl's diary?" "Not exactly," Wesley said. He stood. He walked to the door behind him. He opened it. Willa walked in. She walked the way a small person walks who has decided. Her sneakers made a soft shuffling sound on the carpet. She climbed into the chair Wesley had pulled out for her. The chair was too big. Her feet did not touch the floor. She did not try to hide them this time. She let them swing. Then she stopped them on purpose and folded her hands on the glass. She put the notebook on the table. The chewed corner faced the lawyers. Lillian Carver leaned forward, gentle. "Hi, I'm Lillian. I work for the government. Do you know what that means?" Willa thought about it. "It means you have to write things down." A small smile. "That's exactly right. Could you read me what you wrote down?" Willa opened the notebook. She had rehearsed this, alone, in her room, at Auntie May's table, 2 nights running. She had chewed the corner 3 new times. "Page 1, she said. Her voice was clear. "October 14th, Mom, Moon, Miss Patty, Moon, Mr. Elliot, Star, Auntie May, Moon." Lillian's pen began to move. The lawyers stopped chewing pastries. "Page 2, October 15th, Mom, Star, Miss Patty, Moon, Mr. Elliot, Moon, Auntie May, Moon, new name, Eleanor M. Moon." Margaret Wilson, who had not spoken yet, slid a stack of paper across the table. The keycard logs, the dates lined up, the names lined up. 11 weeks, 14 buildings. Holloway's lavender tie no longer matched his face. This is absurd. This is a child." "Mr. Holloway." Lillian did not look up. "Let her finish." Willa kept reading. Her voice did not waver. She was used to reading aloud. Charlotte's Web, the BFG, her own homework, and she had decided in her room 2 nights ago that she would read this the same way. When she got to the last page, she paused. "Today," she said. "December 18th. Mom, Moon." But my mom didn't go to work tonight because someone took her job, so this moon is for the one she should have had. She closed the notebook. The room was quiet. Wesley Anderson, who had not spoken in 7 minutes, looked across the glass at Gregory Holloway. "You said it was a diary, Greg," he said. "You weren't entirely wrong. It just wasn't hers." The meeting did not end with shouting. It ended, instead, with a small nod from Lillian Carver, a longer nod from Margaret Wilson, and a kind of paleness around Gregory Holloway's mouth that he could not quite get rid of. Willa was led out by her mother before the lawyers' faces could fully arrange themselves. In the hall, Wanda knelt in front of her daughter, both hands on Willa's shoulders, and looked at her for a long time. "Baby," Wanda said, "I read it good." "You read it good." Wanda pressed her forehead briefly to her daughter's. The notebook was still in Willa's arms. That was at 11:20 in the morning. At 4:08 the next morning, a Wednesday, Wesley Anderson sat alone at the marble counter of his own kitchen, with Eleanor's cookbook open beside him to a page he had not read in 2 years, and he opened a new email. He had drafted it the night before. He had revised it 3 times. He had taken almost everything out. The subject line read, "Bright line, for the record." The recipient list was longer than the body. It included the parent company's full board of directors, a senior enforcement contact at the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Building Owners Association of every Halcyon-managed property, a case officer at the U.S. Department of Labor, and 3 reporters Wesley had known for 20 years and never asked anything of. Attached, the keycard logs, the audit summary, photographed pages of the notebook with Wanda Brown's signed written consent, a transcribed copy of Willa Brown's testimony, taken under Lillian Carver's seal. The body was 1 sentence, 11 weeks, 14 buildings, 1 8-year-old. Sincerely, Wesley Anderson. He read it once. He clicked send. The room did not change. The kettle on the stove did not boil any faster. The dust line on Eleanor's cookbook did not move. But somewhere a long way away, a server in New Jersey received a packet of data and forwarded it to 19 inboxes. And the small dominoes a child had been counting for 3 months began to fall. Within 48 hours, Gregory Holloway was suspended. Within 72, he was terminated. By the end of the following week, he was the subject of an active criminal investigation. The parent company fired the entire regional management tier, issued a public apology, and ordered back pay for every cleaner whose hours had been scrubbed. Wanda's portion came to $4,200. She was offered her old job back. She did not take it. She agreed to meet Wesley Anderson at a diner on 10th Avenue. Not his office, not his apartment, not anywhere with marble. The diner had a counter, vinyl booths, and a coffee that was bad in a comforting way. Willa came along. She ordered chocolate milk in a tall glass with a paper straw. Wesley wanted to write a check. "Mr. Anderson," Wanda said, "my daughter doesn't need charity. She needs a country where what she did wasn't necessary." He looked at her. He looked at the chocolate milk. He looked at his hands on the formica. "Then what?" he said. Willa, without taking her mouth off the straw, said very calmly, "Mama could run her own company. She knows everyone's hours already." Both adults looked at her. Wesley said, "She's right." Wanda did not answer for a long time. The waitress came and refilled their water glasses. Outside, a bus hissed at the corner. "What kind of company?" Wanda said finally. It took 6 weeks. Brown Operations Group was incorporated in early February. Employee-owned, employee-led, with Wanda Brown as vice president of operations and a small board that included Auntie Mae Wilson and Mr. Elliot Sanders, whose pension had not been enough to cover his blood pressure medication anyway. Wesley provided the seed capital as a loan, not a gift, on terms Wanda negotiated herself with Margaret Wilson, and which Margaret would later describe as the toughest 40-minute negotiation of her career, with a woman who had never seen a term sheet before that morning. Halcyon transferred 4 building service contracts to Brown Operations on the 1st of March. On the day the paperwork was signed, Wesley took a small white envelope out of his pocket and slid it across the diner table to Willa. Inside was the original red spiral notebook. She looked at it. "You read it good," she said back. He smiled. The smile was rusty, but it was a smile. She picked up the notebook, tucked it carefully into her backpack, and then, almost as an afterthought, she took it back out. She turned to a page near the middle. She peeled, very carefully, one star sticker off the corner where she had first put it 3 months ago. The glue caught on her thumb. She stood up in the booth. She reached over the table. She pressed the star gently onto the lapel of Wesley Anderson's wool coat. He looked down. "What's that for?" he asked. "You came home before sunrise," she said. He did not speak for a long time. The waitress, sensing something, did not refill the water glasses again. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday evening, Wesley came to Wanda's apartment with a paper bag of groceries he had carried himself from the bodega on the corner. The apartment was no longer under eviction. The kitchen smelled like detergent and bread. Wanda made grilled cheese. She made it the old way. Butter on the outside, and after a small hesitation, mayo on the inside. She did not say where she had heard about the mayo. Wesley did not ask. He stood awkwardly in his shirt sleeves with a stack of plates in his hands until Willa came over and showed him where they went. She also showed him, with great seriousness, how to peel a sticker off a sheet without ripping the corner. There was a technique. You used your thumbnail. You did not rush. Halfway through the meal, Wesley reached into the bag and took out one more thing he had brought. It was a recipe card. On it, in his own handwriting, was the recipe for grilled cheese. He had copied it, that morning, from Eleanor's cookbook. He gave it to Willa. "For your notebook," he said. The kettle whistled. Outside, the rain had started again, softly on the metal roof of the bodega across the street. Nobody said anything for a while. Nobody needed to. 6 months passed. Brown Operations Group was running 6 buildings by August. The company had a small office on the 5th floor of a low-rise on 11th Avenue, with a window that looked out onto a fire escape and a single ficus tree Wanda watered herself every Monday. The internal audit method that Margaret Wilson had drafted in collaboration with Lillian Carver, cleaners co-signing their own keycard logs, a triple confirmation system that made wage theft mathematically embarrassing to attempt, was licensed by 2 other property groups in the city by the end of the summer. It was called the Brown Standard. Wanda did not love the name at first. She did not love being a name. She came around to it slowly, the way you come around to a coat that fits in the shoulders even if the sleeves take getting used to. She also launched, in the early summer, a small scholarship in the name of her late mother, for the children of night shift workers anywhere in the 5 boroughs. $3,000 a year for school supplies and a single field trip. Willa helped pick the first 3 awardees. They were kids from her school. One of them was Hannah, the girl with the colored pencils, who had not known until Willa told her that her own father had been counted in the original notebook. In late September, on the first cool morning of fall, Wesley Anderson stood in front of a 3rd-grade classroom at PS 84 with a cardboard box at his feet. "Star stickers come extra," he said. The class laughed. He handed out, to each child, a red spiral notebook, 60 in total. He had bought them himself from a stationery store in Queens, because Willa had told him you could not order them online. You had to hold them and listen for the sound the spiral made. Hannah picked one. She held it in both hands. "Willa," she whispered, "what am I supposed to count?" Willa thought about it. She had thought about it, in fact, every night for 6 months. "Whatever you don't want to lose," she said. The original notebook lived now on a shelf in Willa's bedroom, between Charlotte's Web and a small ceramic horse her grandmother had given her. The last entry, written in red marker in her best handwriting, was no longer about her mother's nights. It was a single line, with a single careful star above the date. The man came home before sunrise. Wesley Anderson, that fall, attended a board meeting at Halcyon Holdings for the first time in 26 months. He sat at the head of the table and listened more than he spoke. On his lapel, half hidden under the fold of his wool coat, was a small star sticker that had been there since spring and showed now the soft fuzz of a sticker that had been carried through weather. He did not take it off. He did not explain it. Eleanor's cookbook was no longer open on the marble counter. He had moved it, gently, both hands, to a shelf above the toaster, where it sat closed beside the recipe card Willa had laminated for him at school. In her own kitchen, on a Tuesday afternoon, Willa sat at the small fold-out table with Hannah beside her. Hannah had her new red notebook open. She had not yet drawn anything in it. "Like this," Willa said. She took Hannah's marker, very carefully, and drew a moon. A fingernail, like her mother had taught her, without ever knowing she was teaching. The school bell rang, distant. Counting is a small act. Counting is also, in a quiet way most of us forget, an act of love. To be tracked by someone who loves you is the opposite of being stolen from. A child who counts her mother's nights is a child who refuses to let her mother disappear. A child who counts the names of strangers is a child who has decided that nobody, not even the man with the gold-doored building, deserves to be uncounted. An 8-year-old kept the records. An email did the rest. But the record came first. The record always comes first. There is no email in the world that can end a man's career if a child has not, somewhere in a quiet bedroom under a small lamp, been keeping count for 3 months. I want to ask you something, before we close this story. Of all the moments tonight, the moment Willa chose her stranger in the coffee shop, the moment she read names aloud in a glass conference room, the moment she pressed a small star onto the lapel of a man who had forgotten he could be carried. Which one stayed with you? Tell me below. I read every reply. And if these stories find a home in you, stay with us. There are more notebooks to open, more emails to send, more nights still worth